Welcome, everyone. Put it in the chat. Hello. We are so excited to have each one of you. This is 2026 Masterclass with Women in Cloud. Please let me know, where are you joining us from? We have people from Chicago, Sacramento, Philippines, Seattle. Welcome, Cara. So great to see you. Pamela from Maryland. Tony, welcome. I want to start by saying this. You're not here by accident. You're actually here because you are the builders, the leaders, and decision makers in a moment where AI is shaping everything, and how we build, how we secure, and how we scale. And today we are actually stepping into a room designed not just for learning, but for access, acceleration, and access. For those of you who have not met me yet, I am Chaitra Vedalapalli, President and founder of Women in Cloud, and also recently honored to serve as a US delegate to W20 for the G20 Summit, focused on building policies for women around AI and entrepreneurship. My life work is simple: design systems that unlock economic access at scale. Not one opportunity at a time, but an entire economic pathways for people to grow, earn, and lead. So before we dive in, let's make this interactive, because the best rooms are the ones where people not just listen, but they are the one who are thinking, reflecting, and engaging. So I have a first question. What was the last decision that you made before you joined this session? Put it in the chat. The last decision I made is I have to go see my dad because he's struggling. So I am leaving, and I finally made a decision. I will go in a week. So that was my last decision I made. What was the last decision you made for yourself? Go ahead, put it in the chat. Carrie says, the last decision I made was to charge my phone before this seminar. I love it, Carrie. Beautiful. Thank you for start engaging. Sydney says, I decided how I was going to prioritize rest of my day for the day today. Going to the gym to stay fit. Beautiful. Preparing for my job interview. Deciding to schedule time for self-care. You are the ones who think, reflect, engage, and take time to decide effectively. Because here's what we are all experiencing: AI is accelerating everything, and decisions are faster, information is everywhere, and expectations on leaders have never been higher before. So the real question becomes, how do we stay clear when everything is moving fast? How do we maintain authority and agency when answers are consistently evolving? And how do you trust when AI transformations are shaping decision behind the scene? So I want to make this one interactive, and I want you to reflect on this. And if you're comfortable, drop in the chat. On the poll question I have, what is the hardest part of leadership for you right now in the age of AI? Number one, making decision with incomplete and rapidly changing information. Number two, explaining AI choices to your team or your people around you with confidence. Maintaining the credibility and authority when technology is evolving faster than expertise, or building trust when people fully don't understand what AI is doing. Tell me in the chat, which one is it? One, two, three, or four? It can be all two. So we are seeing as three as maintaining credibility and authority and building trust, making decision with all fantastic. But here is the deeper one, and I want you to answer that. When was the last time you made a high stake decision? What was it? And still felt uncertain? Type the answers in the chat. When was the last time you made a high stake decision? What was it? And still felt uncertain. Beautiful. Keep going. I love three, four, all. Exactly. Today we are going to be spending time. When was the last time you made high stake decision? Erin says the quote I just sent to a new client for a web design. Beautiful. Congratulations, Erin. And I'm telling you, that feeling, that tension between the speed and the certainty is where the modern leadership lives. Because leadership in the AI era is no longer about having all the answers. It's about creating clarity in the ambiguity, demonstrating the authority without the rigidity, and building trust at scale, even when the systems are invisible. So before I introduce our distinguished speakers, in the chat, let me know how many of you are new to Women in Cloud. How many of you are new to Women in Cloud? Say yes in the chat. I love it. Like you are making decision on father's healthcare, deciding on doctors. Okay, beautiful. Welcome to Women in Cloud to all of you. Let me take a moment to introduce the platform behind the masterclass. So Women in Cloud is an economic access movement, and we are an economic engine, an infrastructure for unlocking economic pathways. Our mission is to democratize $1 billion of economic access for women and allies in the new economy. So today we are 150,000 members strong across 120 countries, and we have already unlocked over $600 million in economic access in the last 6 years. And we do this one by focusing on three things. First is the career access, helping talent get skilled, certified, and hired in a strategic opportunities like DevSecOps, AI ops, or AI architects, anything that focuses on AI innovation. The second part of that is enterprise partnership access for helping founders get access to customers and revenue through co-launching their go-to-market with hyperscalers. And the last one is the leadership access where executives can step into influence, capital, and boardrooms because we believe access is an ultimate key to unlock income, opportunity, influence, and scale. So, with that, it's an absolute pleasure to introduce Arcus co founders to unpack the leadership posture that separates reactive management from the kind of executive leadership that holds clarity, alignment, and follow through in times of uncertainty. We're going to have Gigi Gupta, who has spent her career at the intersection of entrepreneurship and strategic advising. She built the environment where rules changed mid game, and the leaders who sustained impact weren't the loudest, they were the clearest. Then we are going to have Jill Wardell, Director of Talent Learning and Organizational Development at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, bringing 2 decades of experience in leadership development, organizational effectiveness, and cultural transformation. Her work integrates emotional intelligence, human centered leadership, and executive coaching to help leaders navigate complexity with clarity and intention. And the third person who's joining with them is Elise Davis, second VP of Talent Management at Allied Solution, brings 25 years of experience in talent management, leadership across corporate environments, a mind body medicine certified facilitator who is known for aligning talent strategy with business outcomes and building high impact people first systems at scale. All three of you, welcome to Women in Cloud Masterclass. So before we get started, we want to know what was the last high stake decisions you all made? Gigi, I'll start with you.
Hi, Chatra. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us here. Thanks for that introduction. My high stake decision just yesterday was that I decided to go towards more simplicity in my life, taking some things off of my plate because it's a lot. It's a lot these days. And it's always a good idea to self reflect and self correct. So, yesterday was the first time I might have said that to myself. So, it was a huge decision.
Amazing. Welcome, Gigi. Jill, what about you?
Yeah, similar to you, Chethra, I also recognize that there are some challenges on the home front with my son, and I'm going to pivot what was on my plate today to put first things first. When there are situations that happen with your family, you recognize what really matters. And so I'm grateful to have a team that can support that pivot, and I'm looking forward to helping him get help. Thank you.
Amazing, Jill. Congratulations for making those big decisions with the family. Elise.
For me, it was around setting some hard boundaries around time and self care. So, usually for me, that's the first thing that goes out the window. And so, usually one of those tougher decisions that came into play. So, hopefully, I can commit through to it.
First is welcome to all of you. So with that, I want each one of you to say boom in the chat if you're ready. And if you have any questions, use the Q&A tab and write down all your questions. So we will answer most of it. With that, Gigi, I'm going to hand over the baton to you.
Thank you, Chatra. Thank you. And I loved this interaction, all the responses in the chat and the questions, the poll. And thank you to each one of you for being here. And all the decisions we are having to make under high pressure, it does solidify what we are going to talk about today. In these times, it's very important to have these conversations. I'm Gigi. I spend my days inside the AI transformation with boards, with executive teams, with women leading through a kind of complexity our playbooks were not written for. Jill, Elise, and I will be walking with you all today. Between the three of us, you'll get a framework, three tools you can use when you leave here, and I hope a few sentences that stay with you longer than this session does. So we are very happy to be here to have this talk. And here's where I want to start. AI is not replacing leadership. It is exposing where leadership is underbuilt. That's the sentence that has organized my last 2 years of work. And I'll tell you why it matters more than ever right now. I'll give you some data. With McKinsey's most recent State of AI report, the 2025 edition, found that 88% of organizations are using AI regularly in at least one function, which is up from 78% the year before. That's a 10% rise. But only about a third have actually scaled it across the enterprise. Just a third. And only 6% are capturing a real earning impact from it. Think about that gap. Near universal adoption, but near absent mastery. So people are just running to get their hands on all the AI tools that are coming out every day or by the second. And McKinsey's own language is that it's a leadership and operating model issue and not an AI tools issue, which is another way of saying it's us. It's how we are leading into this moment. So for the next 45 minutes, we are not going to talk about all these ever-changing AI tools, but we are going to talk about the three leadership capacities, what the data and our own recent experiences with dozens of senior women leaders tells us, and what will determine whether you come out of these next few years amplified or exposed. So let's look at what's actually changing, and we were just talking about it. What is changing right now is a few different things, but these are the highlights that we can completely put our finger on that, yes, that is it. Three conditions accelerated to a point most leadership models are struggling with today. The first one is information. As we know, we are processing more data faster with less time to synthesize it than any generation of leaders before us. Open text research shows 80% of workers now experience information overload, up from 60% just 5 years back. HBR pegs it at 40% of executives reporting they feel highly burdened by information. 40% of executives, they're already highly burdened, and something tells me it's a higher percentage. And the economic cost, Rensselaer Polytechnic estimates information overload is costing the global economy roughly, and listen to this number, $1 trillion a year in lost productivity and bad decisions. We just talked about decisions. How do you do that with this kind of landscape? Next one is speed. Microsoft's Work Trend Index, 31,000 workers across 31 countries, found that employees are being interrupted roughly 275 times a day. And that's a real research there. That's once every 2 minutes of the working day. 1 in 3 say that the pace has become impossible to keep up with. And that's the employees, right? The leader's pace is compounded on top of that. And then comes complexity. 46% of leaders in the same Microsoft study report they're already deploying AI agents to fully automate work streams. And we all are seeing that incoming just about every day, AI agents, right? Which means the job is no longer leading just humans, it's orchestrating a hybrid human agent teams. With failure modes, no one has a playbook for yet. So we have jumped and growing our wings on our way down. Here's what I want you to hear underneath this. Yes, as leaders, we need to keep up to date on which AI tools are coming to the market, who is adopting and shipping what with the AI flood. But for those in the leadership, the truth is that AI is becoming more and more of an amplifier of what all the leadership nuances that were already there. It's amplifying that. The strain lands on the leader, on her nervous system, on her judgment, relationships, sleep. And that's where the decision making and performing capacity comes in. And if that's true, and the data says it is, then the response cannot be another AI tool. What we are talking about here is a very human solution. Next slide, please. The response is deeper human leadership, and it organizes around these 3 capacities as we can see it: clarity, authority, and trust. And I just want to pull on the trust thread for a second because I recently saw trust running very thin in several companies I was talking to the executives of. The staff trust was running thin due to the changing requirements of what needs to be delivered to the customer, right? What needs to be delivered, how does it look like, how we are different or behind from another company who is already adopting this new AI tool. So a lot of that going on. And data here is striking with the 2026 very recent Edelman Trust Barometer, just released in January, found that 78% of people trust their employer to do the right thing. That is higher than government, media, or any other institution measured. But 75% say that the CEOs are obligated, they say the word obligated in the research, to bridge trust divides. But only 44% think that they are actually doing it. That's a 29-point credibility gap. Your people are looking up, and the question is whether what they see steadies them or destabilizes them. And so I want to name something before I hand off, that these 3 capacities are capacities and not personality traits. They're just like a muscle. They're not the things you either have or don't have, which means they can be built in the right space, with the right practice, with the right people around you. And that is what Elise and Jill are going to walk y'all into now. Elise, over to you.
Thank you, Gigi. Next slide, please. So let's just take a moment for personal reflection. And when you think about clarity, authority, and trust, what feels most under pressure and at stake in your leadership context right now? Put it in the chat. Clarity, authority, or trust? And the one that's most under pressure for you right now. Authority is usually after clarity and trust. Clarity, okay. Clarity, authority. Providing clarity in a rapidly changing world. I hear you. Clarity. All right, so sounds like clarity is a big one. Good news, we'll be talking about all three today, but certainly these are things that are not mutually exclusive either, and they work together to create those human capacities. Great. Next slide, please. So why ARCUS exists? Women leaders are carrying extraordinary complexity often alone. You don't need me to tell you that, right? But ARCUS was built in response to that specific reality that senior women leaders are navigating accelerating change, increasing ambiguity, and rising organizational pressure, all which require those human capacities and capacities that many leaders didn't have before AI. So many are unprepared now. Because when we think about the problems AI can solve, it makes leading way more complex, not easier. There's no prompt for that. And how do we know, right? According to the Association for Talent Development, ATD, they did a forward-looking analysis on the top 5 skills to master by 2030. First one, AI and data literacy. The second was complex systems understanding. Third, creative thinking and innovation, human-centered. Emotional intelligence and human centricity, human-centered. Adaptability and lifelong learning, human-centered. AI is changing how leaders need to respond to real-time problems. It's providing information instantly, and how we as humans take that information and make decisions now becomes crucial. The AI elements and the human elements have to learn to work together. And it's also why being able to provide clarity in your leadership practice is not only going to be a game changer, but a career differentiator. Next slide, please. So many of you said clarity. Clarity being direction without false certainty. Clarity provides direction while acknowledging the uncertainty, complexity, and change. It's the ability to create direction when certainty isn't available. Let's take a moment and just pause and think of a situation where you may not have full clarity on something. Think about what's expected of you in the decision you have to make. Leaders often find that they need to overcompensate in ambiguous times. When you overcompensate, it creates a bunch of unnecessary cognitive load. And oftentimes it's load you don't have because you're carrying everything else too, right? You're carrying the work, you're carrying the culture, you're carrying the accountability to outcomes. And often this cognitive load forces us to make decisions really fast without exploring all the options. Or on the other side of the coin, it puts us into a freeze state and makes us stall on decisions, which also isn't helpful, and it's pretty exhausting. So cognitive load, decision fatigue, all while your team is staring right back at you, looking for answers and direction. Clarity is not certainty. It's the ability to create direction when certainty is not available. And the ability to move forward with incomplete information, it is a key leadership skill these days. So go back to that moment where you didn't have that full clarity and consider where you might be overcompensating or overextending energy because you don't feel clear. What if you could put that energy back into the systems around you, effectively improving them versus having to carry all of that load? We have a framework for that. So next slide, please. It's a 3-question framework you can use to find clarity in the midst of ambiguity. And it's designed to help you put all of that overwhelming data into 3 buckets. What you know, what you don't know yet, and what next decision is still possible now. So what do you know? Which really is, what are the facts? What is the current reality? And what can you tell your team to ground them in the facts and reality to keep them moving? What do you not know? What's missing? What gaps exist? Where is the data unclear? Name the uncertainties. And I like to think that uncertainties are a lot like fear. Once you name them, it's much easier to face them. And then the third bucket, what decision is still possible with all of the data we have? What is actionable based on what we know and what we don't know? Because clarity is directional and it's usually never complete. So it's really hard to think of a time where we were ever really 100% clear on something. But it's important to also recognize that this framework prevents you from having false certainty. The overconfidence that leaders tend to exhibit when they make a decision and that they're not entirely sure of, this framework allows you to be confident in both the known and awareness of the unknowns, and prepares you to lead more effectively in this era of new authority. Next slide, please. Authority. The new type of authority is now influence without over control. And yes, I said without over control. Authority is really about now shifting from expertise to discernment. And the old authority, leadership had to be the smartest person in the room. They had all the answers. They had to demonstrate their expertise and describe the methods of how they were going to get things done, proving that they knew enough in the room, right? And moving into new authority is completely different. It's creating space to frame the right decisions, holding context and direction, releasing methods of how you get to where you're going, staying available without over control. It's moving from a leadership style of, I know it all, to, I trust you to make this decision and I support you. Because if your authority is based on being the smartest person in the room, AI has already replaced you, because your team has gotten the answers right off of their laptop. I'm currently coaching several executives who are really having trouble getting out of the day-to-day. They're exhausted. And it's because they're stuck in the old authority. They feel that pressure of having to have all of the answers. And it's incredibly common for people working at this level under these types of pressures. But what if they could shift from having to know all of the answers to being able to discern the information and make key decisions? What if they changed responsibility from action to support? One of the biggest things we're most passionate about at Arcus is helping leaders identify where they can make these powerful shifts into their leadership authority without having to drag along burnout or be burdened or sometimes holding on for dear life. And a lot of that burden comes from having to have all of the answers. It is a true weight of leadership. But the move to new authority helps open up this leader capacity. It's a transition from doing to being, and allows leaders to release this cognitive load and pressure that comes from having to be the smartest person in the room. And AI is a huge help with that transition because it's an information powerhouse. We don't have to have the answers, but we do need to discern what to do with the data. And if we worked with the AI, sometimes we know that data isn't always factual. Last week, ChatGPT was absolutely trying to convince me it was Thursday and it was Tuesday. Just like humans, AI is also a work in progress. But clarity and authority rely on a leader actually leading, not managing action. And our name the goal, release the method framework helps with making that shift. Next slide, please. Moving into new authority requires that shift from directing into coaching. I've talked to so many leaders working without a clear vision or goal. And it's really hard for a team to know how to be successful if their leader has no idea where they're going, no idea what the goal is, and no idea what success looks like. But yet these leaders are also the first one to dive in and firefight when something goes wrong or tell their team exactly how to get the work done. But by naming the goal and empowering your team to be capable, you can restore a massive amount of energy to things that are more impactful for you, your team, and your business. According to McKinsey and Company, clear goals, this is huge. Clear goals are linked to 3.6 times higher performance. Clarity and authority are a performance multiplier. And yeah, that shift from directing to coaching sounds way easier than it is. It's not a switch you can flip one day. It is a practice. But here's a framework to help provide clarity and authority to your decisions. We call it name the goal, release the method. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Name the goal and release the method. So you're going to name the goal clearly, state the outcome you want, be specific, and tell your team what success looks like. Release your attachment to the method. It's not how they get there, it's that they get there. Hold direction, don't control the outcome. Stay available, ask questions, create conditions for discernment rather than dependency. Because a leader that controls methods and create dependency kills innovation and growth. And here's another thing. According to PwC, 80% of employees want more autonomy in their work. And younger employees are significantly less responsive to command and control authority structures. They want freedom in their work. So it's important to ask as a leader what positive things could be happening but aren't, because I'm controlling the methods. Is my team empowered to think and execute in different ways? And what benefits would exist if I moved into a leader as coach role? It's a great framework for increasing your team's autonomy and skill growth. And even better, it releases the pressure on you to carry that cognitive load. So the leader who releases the method earns more authority, not less, by igniting a culture of shared ownership. When you do it together, you do it together. But you can't do it together or well without a very foundational component, and AI can absolutely not replace it. It is the most important component, so we save the best for last. I'm going to hand it over to Jill so she can talk to you about the importance of trust.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. And of course, here I'm taking furious notes that are now going to change what I say because I've been listening so deeply into what you both have been saying. And so if all of us have been listening at the 10,000 foot level right now, I'm hoping you're hearing there's some meta observations that we're making. The move from leadership is to go from singular to collective, from mine to do to ours to do, from monologue to dialogue. You listening to that? That's what this all has in common, right? And this is what we know people want. People want to feel like their work matters, that they're included in decision making, that there is an ownership culture. One of the things that they need to feel that is trust from us, that we trust them, we trust their capability. And trust, by the way, is not a one-walk dog. It's not something that we do at the beginning of onboarding and say, okay, I can check that off the list and now go for it. No, trust is not fixed. It is dynamic. And every single moment, we are either creating trust elevating moments or trust diminishing moments. So I know that there's this phrase that says the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. But if we recognize that every moment we can begin again, and that our teams are paying attention to some of these things at a granular level, now we have entry points in which to start practicing newly. Because the reality is they're paying attention to us all the time. We know that, right? So they're paying attention to a couple things. They're paying attention to our tone. And our tone is not just our voice. It's the moods and the emotions that we either have capacity over or not, whether they rule us or we rule them. You all have been in meetings before where somebody's mood has preceded their body in the room, right? What happens? Do you lean in? Do you lean out? Depends on the mood and the body in the room, right? And so part of this is learning how to gain awareness of how we are showing up, because how we are showing up is communicating things to people all the time. The behavior And so the consistency over what we say and do, actions and words, any leader can say all day long, oh, I have an open door policy. And then when you come and you bring, because you're believing they have an open door policy, and you come and bring a difficult conversation and accept not with that conversation, what does that communicate to you? Okay, your words are not in alignment with your actions. And so over time, what does that do? That shuts us down. We stop bringing ideas. We start having conclusions about our leaders, etc. What's safe, what's unsafe, right? It's also in our presence. And our presence is not just our body. This we hear all the time these days. We need to move from performance to presence. And we're not reverse engineering. What does presence actually mean? It's not just our words, the way we move, that kind of thing. It's the quality of our attention. Do we give somebody our full attention? And when we do, what does that signal to people about what matters and what doesn't matter? So I'm going to give you a teaching story because I have 3 pages of notes here and it's not the thing that wants to happen right now. So here we go. Thank you for grace. So this morning I was coaching an AVP, and it's fascinating because his boss, who was the VP who hired me to coach him, said, you've got to coach this coachee because he's skeptical. And I said, okay, that's interesting. And so as I started to work with the coaching client, one of the things that got revealed in time was that the behavior of the boss, the VP, had something to do with the skepticism. Because here's what was happening in real time. The employee would go into meetings with the boss, and in 95% of the meetings, her nervous system was on fire. She was constantly taking texts. She was answering phone calls. Now, granted, she reports to the president, makes some sense, but she continued to do this. She would continue to apologize, but she would reschedule meetings. They would get cut short. When he was there, she would be turned away from him and on her computer while he is there speaking to her. So all of these things that we're talking about here, tone, behavior, and presence. What do you think that communicated to him? That he mattered, that his work mattered, that he was worth investing in? And here's another thing I'm going to say. People shrink or expand based on the narratives we tell about them. The leader started with the coaching intervention with he's skeptical. What do you think that narrative did in terms of her commitment to actually see him beyond that? Because here's the thing I want you to hear. This is gonna be provocative, but I think it's absolutely true. We are always co-creating the performance of our people. Always. We're on the hook for it. And so trust is actually a dynamic polarity of being trusting and being trustworthy. So if we want our people to trust us, we have to be trustworthy. And so that means when we have to show up, we have to do what we say when we say we're going to do it. We have to give them our full attention. We need to be mindful of the skin that we're in and the presence that walks into the room and what it communicates out, right? And when we can start paying attention and flexing our social awareness out of our own insides, from the inside out, we can start noticing how these things are making a difference with our team. And that's really important because when we do that, we can start getting some clues about what they need more from us. Okay. So I want to pause here and I want you to think about this question. So think about your team. Okay. What signal of these things might your people need most from you right now? And what might that signal be telling about your degree of caring, about your degree of commitment? And it doesn't have to be the negative stuff. It can be the positive things too. Some of you may be rock stars in these areas, right? And that's important too. But there may be places that we can sharpen the saw. So I want you to sit with that. What might I do differently so that I can communicate my commitment to my person, to my people? Because if we think about it, our people are our most valuable resource. And if we don't take the time to build the relationship, we should not be surprised if the results are lacking. We have something to do with it, right? That's the good news and the bad news. And by the way, the other thing I want to say is trust is not fixed. Relationships are not fixed. Every moment can be a trust elevating moment or a trust diminishing moment. It's our choice. Okay. And so we can always begin again. And this is the kind of work that we really are committed to in Arcus. It's really almost like flipping our pocketbook out and looking at the way that we have been showing up as leaders and holding up a mirror to say, is this still serving? How else might I be? What's being called for? That's the work, right? And so trust, we know that the future of leadership is relational. This is what people need. And we know that people don't leave exit climates, they exit bosses. So this is ours to do. So thank you for letting me be a little inspired there. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so again, back to this idea of holding up the mirror. We want to be able to have an honest assessment. We have to start reflecting and start paying attention, right? So these are some ways we can check in and see how we're landing with our people, right? And so each of them are 3 separate observation points based on the 3 pieces that we talked about before. So the first one is about alignment and fidelity. Am I aligned both in private and in public? How do I know? Is what I'm saying behind closed doors the same thing I'm saying in front of closed doors? Is there a degree of transparency? Because transparency has something to do with trust, right? And so people want to know that who we say we are is actually who we are, because that also contributes to psychological safety. Number 2, am I moving too fast for people to metabolize change? Now, y'all, I know some of you are rock stars out there and you probably can move at warp speed, but guess what? Not everybody can. This is for me. This was a learning for me with my team. I am an I on the disc profile of any of, and unfortunately my team are C's and I drive them bananas because I am always coming up with new ideas and they're like, whoa, we can't keep up with you. Let's be sequential about this. So part of it is really trying to calibrate our energy and attune it to the energy of our team so that we can get sustainable results. Because when we do that, we're not only saying, hey, I see you and I see that you move at a different speed. And by the way, there's no judgment there because I know that if we are all operating at a speed that serves us, we're actually going to have sustainable results. Because if we do not do this, we should be not surprised that people burn out and leave. Leaders that are asleep to this have turnover through the roof. Okay, very important. The last thing I want to say here is that am I available enough to be stabilizing? The operative word here is enough. Okay, this does not mean you have to be available all the time. What this does mean is that the quality of our attention is more important than the quantity. So when people are in your presence, do them a favor, be there for it. This is the conversation that matters. They're there for a reason. The more that we presence our care first, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So the more we presence our caring first and listen deeply, not only to what is said, but is unsaid, you should not be surprised if those, like behaving in those kind of subtle ways, start to turn around our employees that we may have framed as adversaries and turn them into allies. And by the way, that's the other thing I have to say, and then I promise I'll shut up here. People shrink or expand based on the stories we tell about them. Okay? If we want our people to operate at their highest selves, we might have to adjust and expand our narrative about their potential. And just notice when you do what that does to their performance. I promise you, this is a social experiment that I think will reap a lot of benefits for you. So this final piece here, it's not in our moments of success, but in our moments of pressure when our true trustworthiness gets revealed. People are watching. So how are we going to be with the upset? Are we going to beat them up? Are we going to say, how fascinating? Okay, interesting. What do we want to do now? We need to create environments that are permission to learn cultures, not consequences organizations. And when we do, excellence is the thing that gets unleashed. Okay, next slide. All right, so one of the things we wanted to do here is we just wanted to spend a couple moments integrating what happens when these 3 capacities form a cohesive leadership response, right? And so this is really making the argument from us. And by the way, I just have to say this. To me, a lot of people are afraid of AI right now. I think this is a hallelujah moment. Just like the pandemic was a hallelujah moment for a lot of organizations that did not know how to do hybrid meetings. I know a lot of you in corporate were like, yeah, we've been there, done that. But in higher ed, I will tell you, that forced us to learn how to do hybrid meetings. And here's the beautiful thing. AI is forcing us to actually become truly human, to bring a human-centered servant leader approach to leadership that we always needed to do anyway, but now we have to do it. And if we don't do it, we might not exist, right? So it's okay. We're up for that. And so this is really what we're saying. So it's a hallelujah moment because it's forcing us to amplify these skills. All right. And so what we really want to do is to look at what each of these things does, right? What they are for the sake of. So clarity is for the sake of reducing noise. Authority is for the sake of reducing over control. And trust is the thing that stabilizes people in motion, right? And so the point here is that these are not isolated leadership traits. They mutually enhance and reinforce one another. Because here's a couple distinctions. Hold on to this. Clarity without trust can feel clinical, can it? Think about that. Authority without clarity can feel controlling. And trust without authority can feel warm but directionless. So if we learn how to master and amplify each one of these states of being, and that's what I'm going to call them. These are not strategies, they are states of being. We are learning how to elevate the upsides of all of them in tandem and or in an orchestra together. Okay. And together, these three things create a leadership response that is honestly truly fit for complexity. So I want you to imagine now into the future how your results might change if you decided to experiment with these. If you integrated even one level deeper in each of these capacities, what might shift first on your team? So here's a couple things. Maybe it's faster decisions. Maybe it's less rework. Maybe it's more initiative, ownership. Maybe it's better retention. Maybe it's more honest dialogue that gets at the root of the things that we've been avoiding. And so when these three capacities come together, they create something important, not just the AI user, but an AI-ready leader. And that's what we're trying to do. And so these are the capacities that help bridge some of the challenges we're experiencing with AI and guide people through ambiguity, pace, and change. It doesn't replace leadership, but they reveal how leaders can regulate themselves, guide discernment, and build trust over pressure. So let's go ahead and move over to this next slide, because really what we're trying to say now is that how do you do these things? What's the best way to go about doing these things? You certainly could work on them alone. And by the way, a lot of us have done this. There's lots of books, there's lots of trainings, there's lots of TED Talks. Elise and I have spent 20 plus years in the talent development and learning development, leadership development space, leading this function. And we are real big believers in cohorts, because cohorts is really truly the place where transformation happens. Because now you don't just have facilitators that are there as way showers, you have every other single person in the room as a way shower, as a wisdom holder, right? As a culture keeper of the culture that we're trying to co-create together as leaders, right? It's very different. And so what cohorts do is they give us the space to reflect, to practice, and to use peers to help us mirror ourselves into existence. Because transformation requires more than insight. It's not like we're going to open your head and dump a bunch of information in there like a Pez dispenser. This work really will trickle down, in, out, and through you. And Marcel Proust has this beautiful quote, and I just need to say it. The real journey of discovery does not seek in exploring new landscapes, it's in having new eyes. The only way we have new eyes is when we commit to a deep level of inner transformation, where we really look at the mindset, the way we use language, our emotions, right? Our moods, how we show up in our body. And we start realizing that all of these things are a design. We start expanding the ways that we practice and start noticing, like good scientists, how things change around us. Because here's the thing, when we change our stance, culture calibrates to the stance that we have. Culture expands. This is a stance thing, and it requires an inside-out approach. So this is what we want to do in community. All right, how am I doing on time? Okay, moving forward. Y'all might need the cane. Okay, so real quick. So we are here to talk about also how the cohort builds these capacities, right? The container is the thing that's designed for the work. So we are definitely going to be focusing on clarity, authority, and trust. And here are some of the mechanisms that bring those to life. Clarity, by having structured, facilitated dialogues, by having the participants in the program act as peer mirrors, holding up the mirror, right? We've got to be able to see ourselves. Having 2 leadership assessments, a leadership circle profile, and emotional intelligence 2.0, which are the gold standards in those fields. Authority. We have monthly one-to-one coaching that's built in. We have leadership integration practices that really meet the rubber to the road, bring the rubber to the road in your organizations. We have cohort support and feedback that happens in multitudes of ways. We also have immersive, inclusive retreats that are really aimed to restore you, but also give you that confidential peer community and give you access to embodiment practices that really help you shift, create those fundamental shifts. So we are really, what ARCUS is, it's more than a leadership curriculum. It's a developmental environment built for the capacities that matter most right now. So you can go ahead and flip us forward. And so here are some of the elements of the journey. It's an intimate developmental environment for senior women leaders. So some of the things that we have built it for and around is to be intentional and curated. Intimate, only 10 people at any given time. Like I mentioned, one-to-one coaching, plus rotating peer accountability partners, the leadership assessments that we spoke about. It's year long because we feel that transformation takes time, attention, and intention. And we also want you to know that the pillars that we've designed that roll up to these 3 capacities and actually operationalize them are EQ, resilience, change leadership, and authentic leadership. The immersive retreats, again, are those places for you to restore and connect, and also really do some deep inner work. There's a lot of ritual that we're programming into that. And we also see this opportunity as a way of creating community over time, not just during the cycle of ARCUS, but also afterwards through the alumni community that we're thinking about building. So I know that's a lot of information. And we also understand that a full program may be too much right now for you to consider. And if that's the case, we want to pivot now over to Gigi, who can talk about Emerge, which is basically a doorway in, a way to experience the longer cohort before fully stepping into the ARCUS journey.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. Thanks, Carolina. So thank you all. This was profound, and I was just really present, and I loved all the insights from Jill and Elise. Y'all, thank you. So everything we just walked through, clarity, authority, and trust, definitely none of it gets built in a 45-minute session. Like Jill was saying, insight is cheap right now. You can get from any podcast, LinkedIn post, or AI chatbot. But what's actually rare in 2026 is integration, the space to metabolize what you're learning and practice it under real conditions and be witnessed by your peers who get the terrain. Next slide, please. And so today, I encourage everyone here to find spaces which feel like you belong there. And I know we are talking about one of those here right now, ARCUS, leaders at your own level in the same room, a hive mind. We are all in this together. We did keep very intentional at only 10 leaders at a time in one group, one cohort. And ARCUS, which Jill, Elise, and I co-founded, was conceptualized over 2 years of us meeting every Saturday morning, building the program for exactly the times like these. And the cohorts, they are intentional to be sustained over a year with immersive experiences, strong pillars, and a very well needed structure, which is needed right now in leadership. And so that's what you'll find in Emerge. That's a 3-night at a private villa in Palm Springs retreat and immersion, July 23rd to 26th. Then we would love to see you there, you with 9 other senior women leaders and Jill, Elise, and I. So you can see a few of those details here, and more details and almost everything you would want to know before you get on a call with me. It's on our website, arcus.one, and also on one of the pages there for Emerge Detail, you will see everything there. What it is about is embodiment work, because your body regulates before your mind decides, walking your leadership journey with peer witnesses, navigating the leadership tensions every senior woman knows but rarely gets to name out loud, so you have that space. Morning mindfulness, chef prepare meals, nothing to organize. So just an amazing time of learning and growth and transformation and connection. And so this will be a preview of the full ARCIS cohort. And for many of you, it will be the clearest way to feel whether this work is the right next step. And you can find more information, as I said, and there will be contact details shared here as well in the chat. Next slide, please. So if you're taking nothing else from today, take these 5 sentences, and I would invite you to read them slowly, and I'd invite you to notice which one lands not in your head, but in your body. If one of these made you pause, that's the signal, that's the conversation. Jill, Elise, and I would love to continue with you privately, because here's what the data tells us, and here's what I know from the inside of this work, that a very large percentage of leaders say that this is going to be the most pivotal year for leadership decisions. And this is a very unusual moment. It will not repeat. And we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, that's Chetra's.
Again, Gigi, Elise, Jill, first of all, thank you. Like, I took some really cool notes. And Jill, something landed with me is around, it is a hallelujah moment, because I truly believe that collective work will happen, because for the first time, the job is going to be focused on workflow experiences and connected experience. So we get to really do the things that we really can do with people and also agents, because that one will take the manual burden away. And I loved each and every one of you talking about it. So for all of you who are listening, tell us, what was your takeaway from today's session? Hopefully you took something with you. And if you didn't, then I want you to do is, first, let's do a poll first, or let's get people's feedback. What was your takeaway from today's conversation? For me personally, I feel like I want to be in the special space where I can hang out with 10 women, 3-day retreat, because leadership actually happens in those retreat experiences. I did it like 5 years ago in Maui, and it was life-changing. And all the challenges that are coming, I had already visualized it during the retreat experience. So I'm not in stress now. I know, I'm like, okay, it's coming. I know how to navigate. So thank you for putting that together. Okay, so for all of you, we are sitting and saying, what do I do next here? We have a guide that we have created, which is Jill, Elise, and Gigi. They have created this guide for you for post Masterclass. And what it does is allows you to look at each of the areas and start looking at it and say what you need to do in the next 1 week. Because most of the leadership work is talking to yourself and understanding who you are and what you need to change. Because once you change, everything around you changes. So take a moment is to identify your 3 capacities. You have 3 lenses and 1 week. Be relentless and try to invest in yourself. And I would say is take Saturday afternoon and you sit down for 2 hours, block it on your calendar, take this document and go through it, because then it'll allow you to get there. And number 2 is, if you're ready and if you want to be part of the retreat, go reach out to Gigi, or if you want us to do a warm introduction, we'll make the warm introduction so you can actually learn from them is how you can participate. Does that sound good for all of you? Say yes in the chat for me. Okay, so a couple of things. Carrie said, I absolutely did. I viewed that what Jill was saying and applying to what I experience on day-to-day at work. I am a treatment coordinator at an orthodontic office transitioning into tech field. Carrie, welcome. The tech is absolutely accessible now. You should learn what AI provides and transform your career. Sadia said, I love the notes on leadership clarity and how to lead with clarity, how to build trust among your team members, how real leadership is about shared ownership, not control. And Sydney's one of her favorite quote and takeaways, but she has many. Clarity without trust can feel clinical. Authority without clarity can feel controlling. Trust without authority can feel warm but directionless. Beautiful. Okay. And Alicia's one is a lot of great takeaway. Thank you, ladies. Think of the first few notes of recognition, setting hard boundaries, and keeping what matters most in frame was beautiful. It will allow us women to continue curating trust, clarity, and authority in our work. So please reach out to them on LinkedIn. And if you want as a warm introduction, please reach out to us. We'll make a warm introduction if you want to be part of the journey. Okay, if you can go to the next slide for me, please. So before we get on to the Q&A, because I know you may have questions, if you can go to the next slide, I have few resources and few things that are coming, and then we'll come back to Q&A. The next masterclass is focused on with your blood reports, the lab that matter and what you need to do them. We did the wellness summit, and this one was a very popular session with Dr. Chelsea. And she talked about how to read your blood reports to really understand what's functioning, what's not functioning. So she's coming and doing a full masterclass with you on May 20th. Don't miss out. Before that, go get your blood results and then have that data, whether it's your heart data, your lipid panel, or your hormonal panel, have it, and you can have a Q&A with her. So it allows you to go deeper and understand what is compromising your executive functioning. Next slide. Okay, so we also established the confidence circle. This is for you to really build confidence as you go in the AI economy. That program is available. So it does have a 3-part live activation series with Patty, and it allows you to do your vision board, allows you to create momentum through the master classes, which is why master classes were created. And then you can own the wins, because once you have confidence and you start to create the momentum, and then you can create collective moment. And we do have a confidence circle community, which is really ensuring that becomes your economic infrastructure, because access is very important. And the third part of this program is an advocacy engine, which is allowing your stories to be told, because you want people to find you, be visible. And that particular program is now available. People are joining. We would love you to be part of it. Now, if you want the recording, we will have the recording for the people who came in today. So you can access the recording for 1 week. And after that, it will be available through the Confidence Circle. And the last one, next slide, is if you have to get access to the opportunities from Women in Cloud, most of the time they say, how do we get engaged? There are 3 ways you can get engaged. On LinkedIn, join our newsletter. If we have the Empowerment Chronicles, every opportunity is shared in one single place. We have a digital network, which is led by Chelsea. She drives the great engagement. And we have cohorts. Depending upon the cohorts you're part of, you get to engage. And that's what Jill talked about. Cohorts create community. Community creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. And that's when you have the economic pathways working for you. And the last one is the WIC event calendar. Have that, because any new events that are coming, it's easily accessible, so you can be part of it. If you don't register, no access to any opportunity. If you register and you show up, that's where the real value is. So hopefully that one was helpful for all of you to be part of the masterclass. With that, we will open up for the next 10 minutes for a Q&A. Ladies, be ready. I have a question for you. But before that, I'll ask all the audience, please put in the question so I can moderate with Jill, with Gigi, and Elise. Gigi, I have a question. You talked about the retreat. Take me through the 3 days. What can I experience in that? I know I love the chef curated food because now I don't have to think about 3 days. How does that look like from the time you enter till the time you leave? What does that experience look like?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Chatra. We have been putting together the most beautiful, the most transformative experience that there can be. And the structure is also on our website, so everyone can take a look at that. We do start on Thursday evening, that is July 23rd. And so we start with a crossing the threshold ritual. So we are meeting with each other by the pool in the villa, and then just talking about each other beyond the bio, who we are, and then sharing some of the tensions that we don't talk about loud. So it's almost an exhale. We're calling it an exhale ritual or ceremony. And then that's the start. And then Friday and Saturday would be almost reveal and reframe kind of times and relate to each other. So it's our signature experience that we'll start with, and it's called Walking Your Leadership Journey. We have some powerful questions that we'll start with, and where do leadership live in my body? And so there we have a whole structure and almost a curriculum for that. So it's transformation and light bulb moments, and that relaxed time which you're spending with almost mirrors, a room of mirrors. That's what we are also calling it. And it's a time when we come out with deeper connections and some of the answers that we had been looking for, but then we find there. And then we end with dropping the armor, and we witnessed kind of rituals where we are talking about what leadership statements do we want to lead with. And then on Sunday morning, we talk about reclaiming what was our intention to be there. And so I hope I answered your question, but it's hard to squeeze in this short time. We do have 4 pillars that we have structured our KISS curriculum around. That's emotional intelligence, resilience, change leadership, and authentic leadership, and that they will always be a part of any of our experiences. So that's also there.
Amazing, Gigi. I totally get it. I will definitely let few of my friends to be known. Go and do it because sometimes taking that little reset for you to know yourself is the most powerful experience. And that's why the retreat are. And then you build friendship because when we are in our age group, building friends are very hard, and retreat is the fastest way to make friends. So I have this question for you, Jill, and for Elise, is what frameworks or mental models do you rely on when making high stake decision under uncertainty?
Elise, okay. So I have a passion bias for one. It's not the only one, but I think it's one that is such on the edge right now. It's like how mindfulness was in the early 2000s when people just thought mindfulness was something that you practice at ashrams, okay? And now everybody knows that mindfulness is a thing, okay? So here it is, polarity thinking. So for those of you that don't, and it's woven into our cohort because basically I couldn't not do it because I'm certified in it. So basically polarities are interdependent pairs that need each other over time. They're tensions. And when you talk about high stakes decision making, what usually is at the core of high stake decision makings are tensions that we feel are either or. Okay, so let me give you a couple, right? And this is a meta model, by the way. And the thing I'm so excited about is if we get this right, this is our biggest chance for peace in the world. That's what this is about, okay? And it's systemic. Okay, inhale and exhale. That's a polarity, right? Think about from a leadership perspective, some of the things that we have to wrangle with as leaders. Do I tend to task? Do I tend to relationship? Do I, from a change perspective, do I tend to continuity or do I tend to transformation? From a compassion perspective, do I tend to empathy or do I tend to accountability? Do I focus on decentralization? Do I focus on centralization? So here's the reality. And we can see this mapping out in our world in the political divide that we have. The answer is both. The answer is finding the upsides to both of these things that feel seemingly disparate, because if we don't, what ends up happening is we have a yo-yo effect. Think about it in politics. We have an extreme Republican. What happens next? We get an extreme Democrat, right? And it's hello. What are the values that these sides both value? right? And so for us as leaders, when we start understanding that each of these interdependent pairs that feel at odds actually are gifts, and they're gifts for sustainability, right? And they're gifts for us to move things forward, then we can start becoming intentional about how we leverage them and more predictive about what we might see as a result. So that for me is one, but Elise, I want to make space for you. What else do you have in there?
I love that Polarity Jill came to the party. I call her Polarity Jill. She loves polarities. I think for me, it's really easy. I do a lot of values-based work. So when there's uncertainty in a decision, if there's high stakes, I ask myself one question. Who's the person I want to be on the other side of the decision? And why is that important for me and my team and the business? And then I kind of work backwards from there. What does it take for me to be that embodied person? What needs to change? And I've navigated, at least I think 100% successfully, I'm still around, those decisions on a case-by-case basis by just asking, who do I want to be on the other side of this?
I love both your answers because I lead with what's the paradigm I want to live in. And again, it creates the polarity of the paradigm that I'm in and the paradigm I want to go and the person I want to become in the new paradigm. And that's the journey and that's the tension I have to go through. And once you have clear on which paradigm you're going, everything becomes very easy because now all the distraction goes away. So thank you for sharing that is like who you want to become and what is the tension you need to have to get to there, because it's a beautiful thing. And in AI, Sadia actually asked that question is how do you balance the human judgment with AI recommendation without over relying on other? I think we answered that because the human judgment is based on the polarity and also the person you want to be. And I want to ask all three of you, what's the leadership skills that are becoming more important because of AI rather than less? Who wants to start first? Beautiful questions.
I'll jump in. And I think there's a couple things that I've just seen spike in organizations and folks that I've worked with. And I think the two key things are right now that are spiking are emotional intelligence and accountability. And those are kind of, it's hard to have one without the other, but being able to be human in that emotional intelligence piece. And then of course, being able to vocalize that, use your words, as I like to say.
Gigi, do you have an answer for it?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we can ask AI anything and it just churns out stuff and data and information and what can be done. But judgment about what should be done, that yes. And then also a taste of what is actually good, or when the output is cheap. And so you need to know what is actually good. And then also question framing, obviously asking the right questions to AI or to humans. And then at the end, I would say verification. I always add, if I'm asking ChatGPT or any AI tool, anything, I always add, do not hallucinate, do not give me the exact data, but also then definitely verifying that afterwards too. It's AI, because so all of that is very important just because such whole huge teams and the world is trusting you for what you are handling and leading on. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a question about the emerge, I think, with Imani saying, are there pathways to job with this particular retreat, not necessarily friendship? I want to share my point of view. When you're going for leadership retreat, is really relationship building. And without a relationship, people won't actually have you on their team. Nobody hires you because you do a very good job. They hire you because you can vibe with them and you can have fun doing the very difficult job because you're always in tension. And without having a relationship, you cannot really resolve a tension. You'll actually create more conflicts and more polarity. So when you have relationship with them, you can actually have a coffee or chai with them and they say, you know what, how do we navigate this together as friends? And let's get through that other paradigm or whatever the paradigm we are creating. Let's do it together. What do you all think, Jill?
Sorry, I was really looking at the chat there. So I need you to just give me a quick summary, Chethra. Sorry, my
The
bad.
question is, are there pathways to job with this or necessarily friendship with the Emerge program?
Are there pathways to jobs? Okay, so I'm going to speak a little into what I heard you say, which is oftentimes when we know somebody and we know somebody deeply, we know who somebody is and how they work and how they show out, that can lead to things. So there's absolutely a networking piece that is going to be built into this. That's what we're hoping will happen. We're hoping there will be collaborations that will happen, right? We can't imagine that the way that we've designed this has so much intentional ritual, embodiment, content, frameworks, coaching, practice, integration. We cannot imagine that on the other side of that is not going to be actually deep sisterhood. That's actually what we think is going to happen. Even the first example, we didn't tell you a lot about it, but walking your leadership journey. That is the thing that we're going to do at Emerge. And then once we start Arcus, we're going to do it again because the folks that are with us at Emerge will be some that are at Arcus, but there may be some new ones that come. And that is such a somatic experience because basically it's a framework of questions that talk about your past, present, future, purpose, and foundation. And there are prompts, and each woman gets the space to speak into the room with no interruption, a couple answers to questions, and it's very cathartic. And the thing that's really beautiful about it is it's sense making, and you can understand yourself at a large level. And then what's happening as this is going on is that we are actually scribing for her. We're capturing what she's saying. And then at the end, we're saying about who are we collectively? What does this say about who we are? So that is like super glue for bonding. And the reason why we make it first is because we know that if we can get the community tight like this up front, the content, it's just going to take care of itself. But the relationship, we have to forward the relationship first. So yes, it's built in.
Awesome. So this one was great. I know there are more and more questions. We have already gone 20 minutes over. So I wanted to say first, thank you, Gigi, Elise, and Jill. What a fantastic conversation. And for all of you who are listening to this and want to know them, please connect with them on LinkedIn so that they can answer any of these deep questions you may have, because every question you have, it can go for an hour because it requires that kind of conversation that's required because it's situational and you want to solve something. With that, I would love to see all of you on the next masterclass. And let's give a big round of applause for Gigi, Elise, and Jill. Thank you for being here with us today. With that, thank you. And let's conclude today's session.